so many people have opinions and they've never educated themselves. I have zero tolerance for that. You don't get to have an opinion until you've done the homework. I have to do some research, ask a whole bunch of questions, and then I can form my opinion. Having an early opinion to something is not always the best option. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here. Okay, let's talk about all of these people, and it might be you that is like questioning, Mary Jo, I cannot get my head around the fact that I lose access to money for 7 to 10 years. All right. So if you are questioning that, I need you to, there's a couple of things you need to do. One, you need to go back and reread my book, and you need to reread Nelson's book, or you need to read Nelson's book for the first time. Okay. If you have not gotten Becoming Your Own Banker, you need to do that. Nelson talks about, in his book, he talks about capitalizing your policy, putting in as much money as you can, right? But he also talks about starting a bank. And you will see in his chapter, starting a bank like the ones you already know, I believe is the name of that chapter. And in that chapter, he talks about, okay, if you're going to start a bank, what do you have to do? You have to buy the ground, you have to build the building, you have to find the employees, you have to do the advertising to get people to your bank. And it takes what? About 5 years to be profitable, if you're lucky. I visited with 200 business owners years ago, 200 of them, one-on-one, I sat down with them. Almost every single one of them, I would say probably 97% of them said it took them until year 5 to be profitable. You guys hear me say it all the time. I starved for the first 5 years of this business because people aren't going to believe me. So it's always this 5 to 7 year mark. Now, why is that any different than starting a life insurance policy? So when people say, well, Mary Jo, I just can't get my head around it. But I've met with them and they're putting money into a 401k. They're putting money into CDs. No, a CD is not locked up for 7 to 10 years, but it's locked up. You have penalties, you have restrictions of how to get access to it. If we're putting money into a 401k or an IRA, guess what? We don't have access to that money till we're 59 and a half. If we do access it, we have a penalty. And so we're questioning starting a life insurance policy and giving up access to money, but we're not questioning the other things. We're not logically thinking about the fact that we are really starting a system that is a business, essentially. We're just super lucky the insurance company already has the employees. They've already done the hard work of figuring out financially where we have to put our money. But other people also seem to be forgetting that this is life insurance. When you buy life insurance, the insurance company uses that money to buy death benefit. Some of that money goes to pay me commission, right? Very small amount, especially in year 2 and on. Even the way I structure the policy, year 1, it's very small amounts of commission compared to a typical life insurance agent. So if you are the person out there screaming on the other side of this podcast, well, Mary Jo, you made a bunch of money. Okay, please tell me how much. And I get paid basically once for the life of your policy to service you for free. Your financial advisor is getting paid every single year based on your size of your portfolio in most cases. Some are different. I get a tiny little bit every single year. Get over yourself. That is what the insurance company pays me. But if you had to start a business, you would have to pay employees. You'd have to pay for marketing. You would have to pay for attorneys, right? To start your business, get your LLC, you have to pay for an accountant. You're going to have all of those expenses, and they're also going to come off the top of whatever it is you make. So when we look at starting a life insurance policy, it is the exact same thing. That's why Nelson has in his book This is what it's like to start a bank. These are all the expenses. This is how long it takes to get your charter. This is how long it takes to be profitable. Those of you that are farming, were you profitable the second that you rented ground? No. You had to buy tractors. You had to buy combines. You probably had to get started and buy some cattle. If you bought some land, you needed to put some infrastructure up. You might have needed to put fences up. Maybe you need a barn. When I talk to my new farmers that are starting from scratch, it takes them about 5 years to get all the infrastructure where they need to be before they can even turn a minute profit. 5 years. Are you hearing that 5-year mark once again? Right? So let's think about it. We're questioning, why don't we get access to all of our money right away? Because it's not a savings account. Is the long-term look better than the short-term loss? 100%. If the long-term gain was not going to be better, why would I even tell you about this? Why would I be doing it myself? That would be stupid. I want the long-term gain on my money. I still have a liquidity of 75% of those dollars so that I can use it and go make more money. So we're giving up access to 25%. And if that's what we're hung up on, we missed the concept. Because the concept is liquidity, control, guarantees, right? We have uninterrupted compound interest. We have income tax-free growth. We have death benefit that's going to go to our family. We have generational wealth. And you're concerned about a tiny bit of money that we don't have access to right away. Yet we're putting money into investments. If we buy a piece of equipment with cash, we don't ask about the loss of money there. If we buy an animal with cash, did we ask about, well, what happened to our money? We don't get it access as a return. You're going to wait to have a return on calf sales, right? If you bought a piece of equipment, you're going to have to wait to have a return with that crop. And that's not even all guaranteed. So think about your thinking, right? Nelson always used to say, it's all about how you think. And if you're thinking about pennies, like my friend Wade always says, you're worried about pennies while you're tripping over dollars. You know, we're worried about that little penny there because we're not looking at the long-term effect of everything that this is helping with. If we could do this, and I just did a podcast on this, if we could do this in a money market, why wouldn't we just use a money market? The money market doesn't have a death benefit. It doesn't have uninterrupted compound interest. The only thing it has is liquidity. Yeah, you can put your money in and then you get access to 100% of it. You don't have death benefit attached to that. So what is the ultimate goal? So many people want to say, well, I just don't understand, but they don't bother to go back to the book and read it again. They don't bother to go and listen to Nelson's book again or to read Nelson's book again. If you've only ever read anything about this concept once, you're doing yourself a massive disservice, because I have reread and read and reread and underlined and highlighted Nelson's book. Even people that read my book and say they read it once, twice, 3 times, it's a completely different ballgame. If you have the book plus all these podcasts, it's massively different because you're really starting to understand. We can't teach this and everybody understand it in one reading, in an hour and a half meeting. This is a lifelong interest, and we want to pay attention to it, which is, again, why Nelson talks about use it or lose it. If you're not using the policy, you're going to lose the policy. I had a client that just emailed me today as I was recording this and said, oh, Mary Jo, we can't pay our premium anymore. I'm like, what are you talking about? You have $14,000 of cash value. If times are tough, you should be borrowing that money and using it. Oh, no, we need all of it. Yes, you're going to get all of it. But guess what? I guarantee you this person is not listening to podcasts. They have not read the book again, and they will not let me call them. So they have already made up their mind. They have shut it off, and they're like, oh, it's an expense, rather than looking at it as an estate plan, rather than looking at it the way they need to. I talked to a client yesterday that was struggling to pay their premium. Every year after year, they get the premium paid, but they're having to be super creative to do it. Because personally, things are tough, right? Things have just not been good financially. They've had to leave the farm, all kinds of stuff happening. And now they're in a position where we've got a new job. We've got some option to make some commission. We can do some side mechanic work. It's all good. And guess what? I'm like, let's just keep struggling through. Because now what do we have to do? When all this new income comes in, we have to not spend. And then we have to get our finances back under order. 100% on page. Why? Because they listen to the podcast, because they've made appointments to talk to me, because we go through that together. They have been clients for an extremely long time. I want to say since like 14 or something, 15 maybe. They've been clients for a very, very long time. But they keep using the policy. They keep learning. They keep listening to everything. And so you have to be engaged. If you're not talking to me, you need to be reading the book, listening to other podcasts on the subject, whatever that looks like, engage in it. You don't just start farming and ranching and never read another thing. Do you go, oh, you know what? I'm just going to farm and this is what grain prices are. I'm never paying attention to those again. I'm never going to learn how to market grain. No, that's not what you do. This is the same thing. So I'm happy to walk you through that, which is obviously what I'm doing now. Think about those things, but we also need to take control because it's about you becoming the banker, not Mary Jo being the banker for you, right? Nope, we're not taking your banking and moving it to Mary Jo, and Mary Jo's going to do that for you. My friends, you do not want me to be your banker. Some of you would not like that. I probably would not be any better of a banker than the banker in the bank because I have a lot of questions. I have very low risk factors. Okay, so if you are questioning that very same thing, and let's just say you're like, well, I don't want to lose access to any of that money, and you've never read anything, then zip it, go order the books, and get the books and figure out the system. So many people have opinions and they've never educated themselves. Okay. I have zero tolerance for that. You don't get to have an opinion until you've done the homework. I learned a bunch of stuff last night from a gentleman that is extremely successful, and it was super exciting talking to him, and my mind was spinning. I had an opinion about none of that because I have to do some research, ask a whole bunch of questions, and then I can form my opinion. And I'm not even a researcher. This girl does not like to overly research things. I want to get moving and make a decision and go. But I'm at the point in life where I've decided and I've learned having an early opinion to something is not always the best option. But I'm going to stay active in all of those things that I want to learn about. All right, guys, I'm not going to beat this dead horse any further. If you have comments, questions, concerns, let me know. Email me, maryjo@withoutthebank. If you've not gotten any one of those books yet, get mine and Becoming Your Own Banker. Get the bundle. If you have them and you haven't read them in a while, reread them. If you haven't gotten the audios, get the audios. Plug me in. Listen to it on audio. Nelson's is phenomenal on audio as well. You can get Hez. You can't get Hez off of my website, but you can go to Audible and get it there. All right. If you guys need me for anything, you know where to find me. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. We hope today's episode has inspired you to take control of your finances in new ways. Don't forget to check out our website, farmingwithoutthebank.com, and engage with us on our Facebook page, Farming Without the Bank. Join us next week as we smash more financial myths and empower you to accomplish your financial goals.